بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وآله وأصحابه وأزواجه والذرية أجمعين. اللهم ربنا أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه، وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم أرنا حقائق الأشياء كما هي. ربنا زدنا علما وعملا وإخلاصا يا رب العالمين. اللهم انصر أولياءك في غزة وفي كل مكان. اللهم انصرهم على عدوك وعدوهم، إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم فرج عنا وعن إخواننا في غزة وفي فلسطين كلها وفي كل مكان. اللهم نفس كربنا وكربهم، وثبت أقدامنا وأقدامهم، والطف بنا وبهم يا أرحم الراحمين يا رب العالمين يا أكرم الأكرمين. وصل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم. So inshallah, going to start chapter 2 of Reconstruction from today. And the chapter is about the philosophical test of the revelation of religious experience. The last one was about the nature of religious knowledge, I think. And this chapter is about the philosophical test, whatever it means. We'll find out soon. The philosophical test of the revelations of religious experience. So again, the focus is on experience. It's a very Protestant, modernist term, experience, because experience is the experience of a subject. And obviously it would have some relation with the reality, but the main focus is on the experience part of it, or the subjective part of it. And religious obviously is also a Protestant term. And how you reveal an experience, a religious experience. So the meaning of revelation here is not clear, maybe. It's more like, Protestant term, inspiration. So revelation itself is a experience. So the philosophical test of the revelations of religious experience. So religious experience. In religious experience, something is revealed, and that religious experience reveals something to us. I don't know. We'll see. Now, scholastic philosophy, he means Christian philosophy, I guess, or medieval philosophy, which provided the basis for the modern philosophy. It's sort of Greek and Roman and other philosophies mediated through Christian tradition, I guess. Scholastic philosophy, and obviously scholasticism also. In scholastic philosophy is not sought for its own sake, but you use philosophies to establish the philosophical foundation, or the rational foundation of religious knowledge, or religious doctrines. So scholastic philosophy has put forward three arguments for the existence of God. I'm sure they have put more than that, but these three are important. These arguments, known as cosmological argument, teleological argument, and ontological argument, embody a real movement of thought in the quest for the absolute. So the quest for the absolute, that's a Hegelian term for God, I guess. And so this embody a real movement. So this is a historical So it's a historical movement, historical episode. So it's a search for the absolute, but this search is historically manifested. That's again very Hegelian, but regarded as a logical proof. So as a historical quest, as an episode in the quest for the absolute, they have significance. But abstracted from that movement, according to Iqbal, but regarded as logical proofs, I'm afraid they are open to serious criticism and further betray a rather superficial interpretation of experience. So as I said, experience is important. So let's think about it a bit. So experience, I guess in English language, experience means, or at least it implies direct personal participation. That's the dictionary meaning of it, direct personal participation or observation. Also have the sense of actual knowledge or contact. So there is sort of directness about experience. So for example, if I have contact with a person, have met him or her, spent time with him, then I have a direct experience of him, for example. But obviously that experience, that directness is not the same as that person's experience of himself or herself. And in Protestant thought and in much of modern philosophy, especially in Descartes, for example, and the followers of Descartes, whether they are rationalist followers or empiricist followers, directness is very important. Directness is sort of a harbinger of truth, in the sense that, according to Descartes, for example, if your direct experience is clear and distinct, then it is certain. And certainty also is something subjective, but it leads to the highest form of objectivity in Descartes, for example. And this emphasis on experience, direct experience, you will find in, like Husserl, in other traditions like Heidegger as well, in pragmatism, which has Hegelian pedigree as well. And Hegel's, obviously he comes from a long Protestant tradition as well, and through Kant, I'm sure he has some connection with Descartes and his tradition as well. In Hegel's history is the unfolding of, or the movement of, the self-experience of the absolute, in which we participate, I guess. So that's the background. In that background, Allama Iqbal said that if we look at these arguments from the perspective of the knowledge of the movement of self-experience of the absolute, then they are important. But looking in abstraction from this experience as strict logical proof, they don't have. Firstly, they don't prove something beyond doubt, so they don't have that level of usefulness. But the self-experience of the movement through which the absolute try to understand himself or herself or itself, these arguments are important. So in other words, these arguments are not that important from a logical viewpoint, but they are important in humanity's struggle to try to understand itself, because humanity's self-understanding is the highest form of absolute's self-understanding in Hegel as well. So I think that much is clear at this point. Okay, so let's read again and see if what we just said helps to understand what we read a bit more. So the philosophical test of the revelations of religious experience. Scholastic philosophy has put forward 3 arguments for the existence of God. The argument known as cosmological, the teleological, and ontological arguments embody the real movement of thought in the quest for the absolute. So humanity's quest for the absolute. But if you're a Hegelian, that's also the absolute's quest for itself. But regarded as logical proofs, I'm afraid they are open to serious criticism. So their usefulness for Iqbal is more from experiential point of view, as if we look at them as humanity's struggle to understand the absolute, rather than as logical proofs. So that's the takeaway from our discussion. They open and further betray rather superficial interpretation of that experience. So humanity's experience of the absolute, or experience of that search for the absolute. So that's an interesting perspective. Probably overall Hegelian, but obviously is not fully Hegelian. Is trying to use Hegelianism as a framework, or at least a partial framework, in understanding and defending Islam itself, obviously. Okay, I think should stop here, because then he will start with the cosmological. So that's sort of a preamble of chapter 2, or sort of even preamble of the preamble. And next time, inshallah, we will start with cosmological argument. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين برحمتك.